India's rather turbulent, sector when it comes to aviation. IndiGo appears will have to ground fleet about 35 aircraft, given that its persistent issues with Pratt Whitney are not yet resolved.
Sounds too familiar, doesn't it, Shweta? Unfortunately,
weeks
it takes you back to
months.
2nd of May, if not all the way back to when Jet Airways was grounded and Kingfisher was grounded. Well, I think let's not jump the gun and assume that IndiGo is going to get grounded. But there is a sizable fleet over there which deploys the Pratt & Whitney engines in the Airbus A320 aircraft, A320neo to be precise, which use the faulty Pratt & Whitney engines. Now, what is the latest issue with the Pratt & Whitney engines? The metal components used in the aircraft, the raw material, the metal used to create components within the engine seem to be faulty and can result in the engine blades literally breaking down, and that spells catastrophe. So over the next 3 years or so, as many as 600 to 700 aircraft across the world are likely to get grounded in a phased manner, because these engines need to be, the parts used in these engines by virtue of the quality of metal that went into them will have to be replaced. Now, what does IndiGo lose? And let's look at that number. I think that number is definitely in context. Out of the total 336 odd aircraft that IndiGo has, 176 are the Airbus A320neo. Now, within this 176 aircraft that are flying the Pratt & Whitney engines, you've got 40 aircraft already grounded as of this moment, and there are another 35 aircraft which are likely to be grounded from January 2024. So out of the total Airbus
almost 40% of IndiGo's
about 40% of IndiGo's Airbus fleet, which is about 50% of the total fleet, amounting to 20% roughly of IndiGo's total fleet is likely to be grounded. Now, in the case of Go First, a much smaller airline, we saw 50% of the airline fleet grounded and eventually the voluntary bankruptcy. Now, IndiGo has made decent profits, in fact 189 crore rupees of profit for the first time. When you compare, Q2 results versus Q2 of last year, you had 189 crore rupees that IndiGo made in profits against a loss last year. And it shows that IndiGo is so far all right when it comes to cash in hand, when it comes to being in the black, being in the green. And there are no alarm bells right now looking at the financials of IndiGo. But again, remember, IndiGo is a publicly listed company and has the largest market share of the aviation pie in India. But the problem is definitely serious. Now, this comes again on the back of Pratt & Whitney engines, which were specifically responsible, at least as per Go First, for the grounding of Go First. So 50% of operational fleet efficiency with which Go First was operating up until 1st of May 2023 could not cut it for the airline to stay afloat. Now, 20% of IndiGo's fleet, again, seemingly in trouble, could obviously mean some sort of trouble even for India's largest private carrier.
Nothing imminent from what we know. IndiGo continues to fly.
Absolutely.
None of its flights have been cancelled. None of its flights are delayed because of the engine problems.
It is already dealing with 40 aircraft grounded, and almost double of that, 35 more likely to be grounded from Jan. So Jan onwards, I would not sort of rule out disruption. I would not rule out cancellation of flights. But at this moment, I think IndiGo is still, given its profitability and given its market share, it is in control of the situation. The situation has been flagged to Pratt & Whitney. And of course, we are also talking all this right now on the back of DGCA requesting Pratt & Whitney to set up an MRO in India so that the serviceability of the fleet goes up, and any engine that require overhauling or any change of parts, components, etc. can be done more quickly than at present. So let's hope. That is still, of course, going to be a long-term project for Pratt & Whitney, if at all that ever materializes. That is the government's wish list, and the airlines would obviously appreciate that and would want that to happen. But until then, IndiGo continues to fly. I don't think there are alarm bells yet on IndiGo, but it is definitely looking at a reduced operational flight efficiency starting Jan.
But people who booked on IndiGo have nothing to worry just as yet. Your flights will take to air. These are long-term issues that could impact IndiGo in next 5 to 6 months to come.
That's right.